This week on Throttle Grotto, how to destroy a brand new wheel bearing in just 1 minute. Stay tuned. Alright, welcome back. So this week, short week, I'm going to be installing wheel bearings into the front hubs of the Rabbit. I've got a set of cabriolet hubs. The difference is the ones that are on the car will only accept a 90mm CV shaft. I need to be able to accept 100s. So I picked up these from a parts car, and I already put new ball joints in, but I'm going to put new wheel bearings in, and these are a press fit wheel bearing, so there's a little bit more to them than just pulling a bearing out and putting it back in like you would on a bicycle hub. And then later on today, we are going to open the can of carb cleaner that has the injectors for the ep30 GTI in it, and we're going to check and see if they were able to get cleaned out or not. They've been in there for about a week, and I'm really hoping that sitting in that stuff for a week has loosened up all the deposits from the old gasoline that were in the injectors, and that I can run a clean pass through them with some carb cleaner, some spray carb cleaner, and we can get a good spray pattern so that once the snow melts outside I can roll the car in and do some more work on the ep30 GTI as well. Hopefully even throw some gas in it and see if it'll fire up. So this could be a really exciting episode. So let's get to work. Pressing in one of these wheel bearings is not a really difficult task. I bought a tool several years ago that allows me to do it with the hub and knuckle assembly mounted on the car. So you take the CV shaft out, you use this tool to push and pull, push the bearing out, pull it in, instead of like putting it on like a ram press and chucking everything up and then pushing the bearing out and in. So I'm going to use my tool because I have it, and it's kind of neat. If you haven't seen how one of these work, it's a little bit different than pushing everything in and out with like an overhead press. So the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get the hub out of the knuckle assembly. So if you're spatially not getting it, this is the hub that the wheel mounts to, and it sits on the car like this. This is where your tie rod bolts in, your strut attaches here, your control arm attaches here, and the brake caliper attaches here. So we've just got it off the vehicle and we're doing it on the bench instead. So this plate slides in here behind the hub, and then these bolts thread into the hub just like this. They're going to bottom out against this plate, and what that's going to do is it's going to give a way to force the hub out of the bearing. Now most of the time when you pull these off, you're going to have the hub, or the bearing is going to split in two, and I'll show you that when we pull it out. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to work on, but it's not too bad. So, and then you will need to use like a ratchet or something. You want to make sure that the bolts are sitting on the plate so they have something to push against. And for this we can use our impact wrench. And there we go. So this is the other half of the bearing race. So we'll need to make sure that this comes off the hub before we reinstall it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dust shield off of here because it's bent and I'm not going to use these. Just 3 nuts to take it off. Once you've got the hub out of the way, it comes off really easy. If you don't have the hub, it's basically designed that it's not going to come off. So now is a good time to take it off, or if you take it off now, don't forget to reinstall it before you put the hub back on. So the next step is there's circlips that are in here, and this one needs to come out because the bearing is going to come out the back side. I'm going to leave the front one in because it's going to work as a stop for the bearing when we reinstall it. So when this one was put back in, it was put into a place where I can't get my pliers into it. So I'm going to have to try to pry it out with this little awl. It's always a good idea to cover it up with a something to keep it from shooting across the room, which I've done before. So I'll show you guys what I did here. So I pried it this way and then used the second screwdriver to lift it up over the lip, and then now I'm just going to work it out of the groove, ideally. Keep it covered so it doesn't, there we go, so it didn't go shooting across the room that time. So this is the other part of the tool that does the real work here, and there's a whole bunch of pieces to it, but the most important ones are, there's a piece that fits the bearing and then a piece that goes over the hub. So this is where the bearing is going to drop into once we have our piece out. So it's kind of setting up like a press, but not really. It's been a while since I've used it, but I did forget that I do need to take this one out to use the press, so I'll pop this one out of here real quick too. Alright, now we can set up our tool. We're going to find the one that fits the bearing the best without being too large. Pretty sure it's that one. I'll check it against my new one here just to make sure. So just as a reference, what you're looking for is you're looking for the bearing to be supported on the shoulder of the bearing when you're pressing it in, and also you want the hub supported, so that way you're not stressing the bearing as it's going in and out of the housing. Just confirmed against a couple of my other dies that that's the one that I need to use. Now we just pull this tool together using this motion here, and it will draw the bearing through the hub and drop it into this cup. Everything will slide out that side. This is where it's really beneficial to have it on the car, because you can actually get some really good torque on it. And just like that, now we have an empty bearing housing. So there we go. You can see that's how your bearing looks when it's together, and then when you separate it. So this is the part that's still on our hub. Alright, so now I've got this cleaned up, scraped off a bunch of the dirt and stuff that was on here, and then just wiped it down with some brake cleaner. We can go ahead and start putting this back together. So the first step will be to put the lock ring into the back side of the knuckle here. And there's a groove for it to snap into, so it's not anything too tricky. And again, it's a good idea to make sure that it doesn't go shooting across the room if you lose it. There we go, so our snap ring is back into the groove. And then we're going to set up our tool the reverse of how we set it up before. So now we're going to pull the bearing through this way. So our bearing, which is so it never hurts to put a little extra lubricant on here to help it slide in. It's a rule for life. And then our support piece that is going to push the bearing in will be here. So it's supporting here, pushing here, and then so, sorry about that thing bouncing all over the place. It'd be a lot better if I had a vise mounted to this bench for doing this kind of stuff, but hopefully soon. So it has come to a natural stop where I'm really not, I'm kind of like the wrench is stopped, and I could force it further if I wanted to, but that usually tells me when it goes in that easy that the bearing is now seated against that snap ring that we put in. So we'll go ahead and pop this back out. And sure enough we are. The bearing is up, seated against the snap ring. You can see on this side that we've got the groove for the snap ring is exposed, which means the bearing is seated in there the way it should be. So we can wipe out some of the extra lubricant we used for putting this together. And I'm going to move this off to the side because now it is time to separate this hub from this bearing race. So the difficult part about this is that the bearing race is smaller than the hub. So this is actually a press fit here. So it's it sometimes will surprise you that you're able to get it off easy, and sometimes it does not. Another life lesson. Sometimes it gets off easy and sometimes it doesn't. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of scraping through here all the way around, because you will find, and I'm going to bend this this outer seal out of the way. So, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but right, get all the junk out of the way here. So right here, there's a flat spot, and right here is a flat spot, which will allow you to actually get up underneath the backside of the bearing race. I've actually had to cut these with a cutting wheel before to get them off. Sometimes they pop right off, and sometimes they are horrible. So I'm going to grab the tools that I need for this one, and then we'll see how this goes. Alright, so this would probably be easier to deal with if I had a vise to clamp this in, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. So I'm just going to take this seal off of here because it's just going to be in the way anyway. So now I actually can have a little better look, see where we're going to run that chisel right down through there, just like that, and see if we can get this thing to move. So there you go. That I know it doesn't seem that way, but that is literally the easiest one I have ever had come off. So I know it doesn't seem that way, but it truly came off really easy. So now that our hub is free and clear from the old bearing race, we can reassemble it and we'll be done. And then I'll move on to the second side. So again, never hurts to have a little bit of, you know what I'm going to say, lube it up. And of course, it's not going to go in there without some coercion. So I'm going to set up our tool again. And this time we're going to use the same piece. So this piece is going to support the bearing from the back. This goes all the way through like that. So just like putting the bearing into the housing, we're going to use the tool with the other tools out of the way to okay, yes, I nearly made a very crucial mistake, but I'll show you guys what I did wrong, in hopes that you will not make the same mistake. I almost forgot the other circlip, but I don't know if I have enough room. Huh. And if I take it out of there, I'm going to destroy this brand new bearing. So I have to try to spread this clip out around. Boy, I really screwed that up, didn't I? Good morning, everyone, and I'm back in the garage for a little bit. I didn't film all of the, let's say, undoings of my not paying attention yesterday, but I'm waiting for the parts store to call me with the bearing. I have the knuckle all stripped out. I took the hub race, or the bearing race, off of the hub. I wanted to show you guys because when I went to take this bearing race off the hub, it did not want to come off. Came off super easy yesterday. This one did not come off. So what I did is I took an angle grinder, and if you can picture this stuck on there like this, I was able to get it about halfway off, and used my angle grinder and just put a slice in it, not all the way through, smacked it with a hammer a couple times, and it kind of broke loose, and I was able to slide it off the hub real easy. So what I would recommend is cutting it, because you can't reuse this anyway. Cut it, and then that'll help relieve the pressure because it's a press fit, and then it should slide off rather easy. I got stubborn and decided I didn't want to cut it, and it took me a lot longer to do the second one, and this one came off in 2 minutes. So if that helps you guys, I hope it does. Great. So and again, don't forget the snap ring, because it'll cost you at least $40 for another bearing. So which is what I have to go pay for a replacement bearing today. The second part of today's episode is going to be the injectors for the 83 GTI. Now, we've had them soaking in this magic can of carburetor and parts cleaner for about a week. Okay, so it's pretty easy to test in one of these CIS injectors. All you need is a can of carb cleaner and the hose, or the little nozzle, and your injector, and you can test. This is an old 16 valve injector I had laying around. You just put the hose down in there, and I'll see if you guys can see the spray pattern on this here. It's not the right injector for the vehicle, but just to give you an idea. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these injectors out of this pretty cool little tub of carb cleaner. So you can see this old thing of carb cleaner has a little parts washer bucket in it, which is actually pretty cool. So these have been soaking in here for about a week, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean them off. And then now we will test each one of these to see if the spray pattern's improved at all. They barely dripped when I did this last time. Well, as you can see from the test, the old carb cleaner just didn't work. Pretty cool little product, but for whatever reason it wasn't enough to break through all the deposits in those injectors. So, truth be told, just using the can of carb cleaner on it before, I had better success, because now there's absolutely no flow through the injectors as opposed to the dribble that I got last time. So we'll count 2 failures for this episode. One will be rectified when I put the new wheel bearing in and get that hub and knuckle assembly wrapped up and ready to bolt on the car. hopefully next week. I'll be working on the brakes a little bit, putting the rear disc brake conversion on, and getting the front knuckles on. I still have to order rotors and pads, and then I can start working on the rest of the brake system. I'm also going to be working on electrical for the engine wiring harness. I have my diagram here of what needs to go where to integrate to the Digifont wiring harness, so I can make a harness that's plug and play. I can disconnect it if I need to take it out of the car and work on it or whatever. So and then the 83, I still have brake stuff to do on there, and fuel system. Obviously, if I can't get fuel into the engine, it's not going to run. So I need to get these injectors cleaned out, and that's really kind of the last step before I can try to see if the car will run. So I'm going to try to come up with a solution this week to get these injectors cleaned. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, get out there and work on something.